Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
You people that are listening, that are angry right now at the things that have gone on to the children, you guys need to rise up, and you need to start demanding that all these depositions and information gathering, that needs to be made public. They need to stop hiding that behind closed doors.
Demand the media. Demand from the media. Because why are we doing another Epstein? Why are we doing another Epstein? You know damn well he didn't kill himself. Let's just do that now. We know that. Okay, everybody's clear? Yeah, we know Diddy didn't kill himself.
You need to hold everybody's feet to the fire, and this stuff needs to be transparent.
There are too many victims. Victims that you don't even know their name. Victims that you'll never hear their laugh. Victims that you'll never know who the hell they were because everybody was so busy bouncing to their music. Didn't I tell you? Music is a diary. Are you now figuring that out?
The disappearance of children across America is a distressing and deeply troubling issue that has persisted for decades, with some cases leaving an indelible mark on the nation's conscience. The hidden crisis of missing children, largely overlooked and underreported, has seen alarming rises in recent years, with thousands of families facing the devastating and often lifelong pain of a child's disappearance. While some cases capture national headlines, the vast majority of missing children's stories remain untold, leaving families grappling with the frustration of inadequate systems, legal loopholes, and insufficient resources. According to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, NCMEC, more than 460,000 children are reported missing each year in the United States. This staggering number includes runaways, abductions by non-custodial parents, and those taken by strangers, a chilling category that accounts for around 1% of these cases. While many children are found within hours or days, there is a significant portion who remain missing, with their whereabouts and fate left unknown for years or forever. The most alarming aspect of this crisis is that, despite advances in technology and public awareness campaigns, the number of cases has not seen a dramatic decline. In fact, certain years saw spikes that stunned even seasoned investigators. For example, in 2020, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic contributed to a rise in missing children reports, as school closures and lockdowns increased the vulnerability of children in unstable home environments. The pandemic disrupted the traditional support systems, teachers, coaches, neighbors that are often the first to notice signs of abuse, neglect, or potential abductions. While many missing children cases never make it beyond local news, some become infamous, drawing attention to the cracks in the systems meant to protect the vulnerable. Perhaps one of the most well-known cases is that of E-Town Pat's, a 6-year-old boy who disappeared in 1979 while walking to his school bus stop in New York City. Eaton's case became a national phenomenon, leading to the establishment of National Missing Children's Day on May 25th, the date of his disappearance. It wasn't until 2017, nearly 38 years later, that Pedro Hernandez was convicted of Eaton's murder. Here is how he confessed his crime.
And Eitan Pates, was he ever around the store at another time?
I never seen that kid in my life.
Okay. You were working at the store for how long before this happened?
What happened?
Before this incident happened that brought us here today.
I think I was working there for a year. Something like that, I'm not sure. A year, 2 years.
And John Pates never came into the store?
I never seen him.
You never saw him in the store, you never saw him,
Never
period?
seen him in the store, I never seen him before.
You had never seen him before?
Never.
Mm-hmm. When you did see him, how long was he standing there before you approached him?
5 minutes.
And were you watching him? Were you going up and down the stairs? What were you doing during these 5 minutes?
I went to the store, put the sodas in the store, come back out. And I stand in front of the store, and there he was, in the front of the store.
Mm-hmm.
Then I approached him and I asked him if he wanted something to drink.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't answer me. He nodded his head. I went down to the basement, he followed me to the basement. And whatever happened there, I choked him. It was something that just happened like quick. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why it happened.
As you talk about it, are you surprised?
I don't even know if it happened. I never saw his face.
So,
His case highlighted the lack of immediate action and coordinated efforts in the initial stages of a child's disappearance. Another case that brought national attention was the abduction of J.C. Lee Dugard in 1991. J.C. was kidnapped at the age of 11 from South Lake Tahoe, California, while walking to the bus stop. Her abductor, Philip Garrido, held her captive for 18 years, during which she was repeatedly abused and gave birth to 2 daughters. J.C. was finally rescued in 2009, exposing the flaws in the monitoring of convicted sex offenders and the failure of authorities to follow up on suspicious activities at Garrido's residence. The Elizabeth Smart case also serves as a grim reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist within even the most protective families. On June 5, 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth was abducted from her home in Salt Lake City, Utah by Brian David Mitchell, a man who had worked briefly for the Smart family. She was held captive for 9 months before being rescued in March 2003. Elizabeth's case brought to light the inadequacies in how law enforcement initially handles abductions, with her father having to fight for national media coverage and more aggressive search efforts. Behind these headline-grabbing cases lies a much larger issue: systemic failures that allow children to vanish without a trace. Many children who go missing come from already vulnerable populations, such as those in foster care or from troubled homes, where the risk factors for disappearing are exponentially higher. According to a 2019 study by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, foster children are significantly more likely to go missing than those from stable, biological families. In fact, nearly 30,000 children in foster care were reported missing in 2018 alone. These vulnerable children often slip through the cracks due to lack of coordination between various governmental agencies. The foster care system, burdened with overwhelming caseloads and underfunding, often struggles to keep track of the children in its care. Many foster children go missing without prompt investigations, and in some cases it is only after months that law enforcement becomes involved. The story of Relisha Rudd, an 8-year-old girl who went missing from a Washington, D.C. homeless shelter in 2014, serves as a tragic example of this. Relisha was under the care of social services when she was taken by a janitor who worked at the shelter. It took authorities nearly a month to recognize her disappearance, and despite numerous searches, Relisha remains missing to this day. While advances in technology, such as the widespread use of Amber Alerts and social media, have improved efforts to locate missing children, technology has also provided predators with new ways to exploit and abduct vulnerable children. Online predators use platforms like social media, gaming apps, and chat rooms to lure children into dangerous situations. In 2021 alone, the NCMEC reported an 85% increase in reports of online enticement cases, where children are groomed and manipulated by predators into meeting in person or sharing personal information. One heartbreaking incident involves the case of Alicia Navarro, a 14-year-old girl from Glendale, Arizona, who disappeared in 2019 after communicating with someone online. Alicia left a note for her mother, promising to return, but she has not been seen since. Her disappearance highlights the growing danger of online predators and the challenges parents and law enforcement face in preventing these tragedies. Another troubling aspect of the missing children crisis is the disparity in media coverage. Children of color, particularly African American and Native American children, often receive significantly less media attention than their white counterparts. According to the Black and Missing Foundation, nearly 40% of missing children in the U.S. are African American, despite making up only 14% of the child population. However, these cases are often underreported by national media, leaving families and communities feeling abandoned by the system. The case of Myra Lewis, a 2-year-old African American girl who disappeared from her home in Camden, Mississippi in 2014, is a poignant example. Despite extensive searches and national news coverage, Myra remains missing. Her case, like many others involving children of color, faded from the headlines quickly compared to high-profile cases involving white children. The hidden crisis of missing children in America requires immediate and sustained attention. Experts and advocates have long called for systemic reforms to prevent children from vanishing into the shadows. Among the solutions proposed are increased funding for child protective services, better training for law enforcement on handling missing children cases, and more stringent laws regarding the monitoring of sex offenders and online predators. Additionally, improving coordination between agencies, especially for children in foster care, could help reduce the number of missing cases. Public awareness campaigns have proven to be effective in bringing attention to individual cases. Programs like Amber Alerts, which were named after 9-year-old Amber Hagerman, who was abducted and murdered in Arlington, Texas in 1996, have helped recover hundreds of children. However, much more needs to be done, particularly in ensuring that every child's disappearance receives the same level of urgency and media attention. In conclusion, the plight of missing children in America is a multifaceted issue that exposes deep flaws in the systems meant to protect the most vulnerable. From systemic failures to disparities in media coverage, the crisis continues to devastate families across the nation. While progress has been made in certain areas, the alarming rise in cases and the persistent challenges faced by families demand a renewed commitment to finding solutions. For every child that remains missing, there is a family waiting, hoping, and searching for answers. The hidden crisis must no longer be ignored.
Well, tonight we have the dash cam video that shows how an Ohio State highway trooper saved a human trafficking victim during a traffic stop.
She looks like she could be under 18. She can't identify herself. He's 35. I say that's good enough to hold for an investigation.
The trooper had stopped this car near Toledo and noticed the passenger was a young girl without any identification riding with an older man. Troopers determined she was being taken to Chicago from New Jersey, where she was reported as missing. Tonight, that man is in jail, charged with abduction.
5 children have been rescued from a sex trafficking operation in the Phoenix area. The FBI said the rescue is part of a nationwide sting that they conduct every year. One suspect has been taken into police custody. 31 other people were arrested, suspected of trying to have sexual contact with children across the valley. In 2022, more than 200 victims were found as a result of Operation Cross Country, including 17 victims in our area.
The role of Child Protective Services (CPS) in the United States is one of profound responsibility to protect children from abuse, neglect, and unsafe environments. However, beneath the surface of this crucial institution lies a darker narrative. Allegations of corruption, systemic failures, and mismanagement within CPS and group homes have surfaced, revealing a disturbing trend. Children placed under the care of the state often end up in even more dangerous situations, and in some cases they vanish without a trace. The system designed to save children is, in some instances, contributing to their harm. Child Protective Services was created to address the growing concern over child abuse and neglect in the mid-20th century. The agency's mission is to investigate reports of child maltreatment and remove children from environments deemed harmful, placing them in safer homes or group facilities. In theory, CPS is the last line of defense for vulnerable children. However, over the years, it has become evident that the system is deeply flawed, leading to numerous tragedies. CPS receives millions of reports each year, and in 2020 alone, over 3.9 million children were involved in maltreatment reports across the United States. With such overwhelming numbers, it becomes clear how overburdened the system is, contributing to a chaotic environment where children can slip through the cracks. When children are removed from their homes, Many are placed in foster care, but a significant number are sent to group homes or residential treatment facilities. These group homes are often portrayed as a refuge, a place where children receive the care and attention they need. However, multiple investigations have revealed that group homes can be breeding grounds for abuse, neglect, and even human trafficking. One of the most infamous examples of this was uncovered in 2018, when an investigation into group homes in Michigan revealed rampant physical and sexual abuse. Children as young as 5 years old were subjected to horrific treatment by the very individuals tasked with protecting them. This case was not isolated. Similar abuses have been reported in California, Florida, and Texas, leading to nationwide scrutiny of group homes and the overall effectiveness of CPS oversight. In 2019, a lawsuit was filed against Broward County, Florida, accusing the local CPS and group home facilities of failing to protect a 15-year-old girl who was repeatedly sexually assaulted by older boys within the system. The girl, who had already been a victim of abuse in her biological home, was placed in a group home where predators were known to reside, yet no action was taken to protect her. The story of Gabriel Fernandez, an 8-year-old boy from Palmdale, California, is perhaps one of the most heart-wrenching examples of CPS failures. Gabriel was subjected to months of unimaginable abuse by his mother and her boyfriend, despite multiple reports made to CPS by concerned family members, teachers, and neighbors. CPS workers visited Gabriel's home numerous times, but they failed to remove him from the dangerous environment. In May 2013, Gabriel was brutally murdered, suffering from broken ribs, skull fractures, and burns. His death became a symbol of CPS's failure to act swiftly in protecting children at risk. The case led to criminal charges against 4 CPS workers, who were accused of falsifying reports and failing to follow protocols. While these charges were later dismissed, the case sparked nationwide outrage and prompted calls for reform within CPS. One of the most disturbing trends within CPS is the number of children who disappear while under the agency's supervision. According to a 2020 report from the Department of Health and Human Services, more than 1,600 children went missing from foster care that year. These children were classified as runaways or AWOL, but advocates argue that many of these cases are a result of inadequate monitoring and protection by CPS. In 2016, the case of Tanya Pierce, a 16-year-old girl from Dallas, Texas, exposed the ease with which children can vanish from group homes. Tanya had run away from her group home multiple times, but each time she was returned, no changes were made to address her needs or ensure her safety. After her final escape, she disappeared without a trace, and CPS failed to track her down. It was later revealed that Tanya had been trafficked, sold into the sex trade by predators who targeted vulnerable children in the foster care system. Beyond the individual cases of neglect and abuse, there are broader allegations of corruption within CPS that have eroded public trust in the agency. One of the most damning accusations is that some states receive financial incentives for removing children from their homes and placing them into the foster care system, leading to a phenomenon where children are unnecessarily taken from their families. In Arizona, a 2021 whistleblower report revealed that CPS workers were being pressured to meet quotas for child removals. According to the report, workers were encouraged to remove children, even when the situations did not warrant it, resulting in an overcrowded foster care system and a rise in cases of abuse within group homes. The whistleblower's claims echoed earlier accusations in states like Georgia and California, where similar allegations of financial incentives for child removal had surfaced. Another layer of corruption involves group homes and private contractors that are paid to care for foster children. In 2020, an investigation into a group home contractor in Illinois revealed that the organization was billing the state for services that were never provided, while children under their care were living in deplorable conditions. Several children went missing from these homes, yet CPS did not intervene, raising questions about the oversight and accountability of private contractors within the foster care system. The failures of CPS are not evenly distributed. Children of color are disproportionately affected by the systemic issues within the agency. Studies have shown that African American and Native American children are far more likely to be removed from their homes and placed in foster care than their white counterparts. Once in the system, these children are more likely to experience prolonged stays in foster care, face higher rates of abuse, and are less likely to be reunified with their families. In 2017, A study conducted by the Children's Defense Fund found that African American children made up 23% of the foster care population, despite only accounting for 14% of the overall child population. This overrepresentation is the result of both systemic racism and bias within the child welfare system, as well as the increased likelihood that minority families will be reported to CPS. The case of Devani Gonzalez, a 2-year-old girl of Native American descent who was removed from her home in New Mexico in 2019, illustrates the racial disparities in CPS intervention. Devani was placed in a group home where she was severely neglected and abused. Despite numerous warning signs, CPS failed to act and Devani died from her injuries. Her case was part of a larger pattern of Native American children being taken from their families and placed in unsafe environments without proper oversight. In light of these ongoing issues, numerous advocates and organizations have called for comprehensive reform of the CPS system. Among the most common recommendations are increasing funding for child protective services, improving training for caseworkers, and holding CPS accountable for its failures. Advocates argue that until CPS is held accountable for the children who go missing, are abused, or die under its watch, the system will remain broken. Several states have attempted to pass legislation aimed at addressing the systemic problems within CPS. In Texas, a 2020 bill proposed stricter regulations for group homes and required CPS to provide more transparency regarding the number of missing children in its care. Similarly, in California, the state passed a law mandating that all foster care children be provided with legal representation, ensuring that their rights are protected within the system. Despite these efforts, progress has been slow, and many children continue to fall through the cracks. Parents who have lost their children to CPS often feel powerless in the face of a system that seems to prioritize bureaucracy over the well-being of the child. Families like the ones of Andrew Bird, a 4-year-old from Corpus Christi, Texas, who died in 2006 while in foster care, continue to fight for justice years after the system failed them. The dark underbelly of America's child protection system is a complex and deeply troubling issue. From rampant abuse and neglect in group homes to the widespread disappearance of children under CPS's watch, the failures of the system are glaring. Corruption, mismanagement, and racial disparities have further exacerbated these problems, leaving countless children in unsafe environments and families shattered by the loss of their loved ones. Reforming CPS and the foster care system must become a national priority. The lives of vulnerable children depend on it. Only through accountability, transparency, and a commitment to real change can America hope to protect its most vulnerable citizens and prevent more children from falling into the abyss of a broken system. Until then, the hidden crisis of CPS will continue to haunt those who have been failed by it.
Caught on camera what police believe may have been an attempted kidnapping on the subway. A passenger on the 6 train in the Bronx caught a man trying to speak with a woman who was asleep in her seat. Then as the train approached the Morrison Avenue Soundview station, you see the man pick the woman up and bring her to a bench at the station. The woman struggles but managed to walk back onto the train, holding the door while others got involved. The suspect got away but was later recognized and picked up by police. He's been identified as 48-year-old Sonny Alloway of the Bronx and charged with unlawful imprisonment.
It's security camera video of 2 people talking outside a nail salon in Plano's Shops at Legacy. You probably wouldn't pay much attention to them until the male stomps hard on the female's foot. It's followed by a violent punch that knocks her to the ground.
I feel sick to my stomach. And for all of us who have daughters, it's just the most unthinkable situation you can imagine.
Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis says you're watching the brutal violence associated with human trafficking play out in public. A passerby notices the man dragging the 17-year-old girl by her hair to the car, throw her into the open passenger side door and close it. She quickly opens it and escapes. By that time, several witnesses were ready to intervene, and the man speeds off by himself.
I'm so proud of those citizens that were there and didn't run away and didn't turn a blind eye.
29-year-old Ricky Stevenson was later captured and sentenced last week to 59 years in prison. Willis says that's a message to traffickers like this one, who flaunt being a pimp on social media, force their victims to get loyalty tattoos, as well as threaten them if they try to leave.
He thought that he can manipulate the legal system here in Collin County by ensuring that the victim not show up. He thought if the victim didn't show up, he would be free.
The victim was only 16 when she was kidnapped and forced into prostitution along with 2 other females. This Collin County case is the first known anywhere involving a trafficker who was convicted only with the testimony from witnesses and no cooperation from the victim.
Human trafficking, particularly child trafficking, is a deeply troubling issue in the United States. Thousands of children vanish without a trace each year, and many of them end up ensnared in the terrifying world of trafficking. This underground industry preys on the most vulnerable runaways, children in foster care, or those in unstable family situations, exploiting them for labor, sex, and other horrific purposes. With each passing year, the connection between missing children and human trafficking becomes more evident, as cases of exploitation rise alongside shocking statistics that reflect the gravity of this crisis. Child trafficking refers to the recruitment, transportation, harboring, or receipt of children for the purpose of exploitation. This exploitation can take many forms, but the most common are forced labor and sex trafficking. According to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children (NMICI), in 2020, 365,348 children were reported missing in the U.S., and of those, 29,800 cases were of children who were suspected victims of child trafficking. The United States, despite being a developed country, has a shockingly high number of trafficking cases, with children often falling into the hands of sophisticated trafficking networks. The victims are often lured into these rings through coercion, deception, or force. Many traffickers pose as guardians or friends, offering vulnerable children promises of safety, protection, or employment. However, once under the control of these traffickers, the children are subjected to unimaginable abuse and exploitation. Sadly, many of these children come from the foster care system or are runaways, making them easy targets for traffickers who capitalize on their desperation and lack of support. Statistics around child trafficking in the U.S. are staggering and paint a bleak picture of the scope of the crisis. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, as of 2019, approximately 50,000 people are trafficked into the U.S. annually, with many of them being children. These children are often transported across state lines or even internationally, making it difficult for authorities to track their whereabouts. Once in the system, they face extreme difficulty escaping due to constant surveillance, threats, and violence from their traffickers. Moreover, the 2020 Human Trafficking Report from the National Human Trafficking Hotline highlighted that over 16,658 cases of human trafficking were reported in the United States, with a significant portion involving minors. Approximately 40% of these cases were tied to sex trafficking, where young children, many of whom had been reported missing, were sold into prostitution. What is even more alarming is that over 80% of child sex trafficking victims in the U.S. were exploited while they were missing from foster care, highlighting the clear connection between the child welfare system and trafficking. In Los Angeles, California, a 2018 report by the California Department of Social Services revealed that over 60% of child trafficking victims in the state were once part of the foster care system. This number, while deeply disturbing, is a microcosm of a larger national issue. Traffickers exploit the system's weaknesses, targeting children who are already vulnerable due to neglect or abuse in their home environments. One of the most heart-wrenching and infamous cases that exposed the link between missing children and human trafficking is the case of J.C. Lee Dugard, a girl from South Lake Tahoe, California, who was abducted in 1991 at the age of 11. Dugard was held captive for 18 years by her captor, Philip Garrido, who sexually abused her and forced her to give birth to 2 daughters.
That's it. Can you go all the way down?
Yes.
Let me see. I bet you can go down really easy, huh?
Yeah, but that is easy.
What instance are we talking about, you getting the kids in the van? I mean, are we talking less than 20? More than 20?
It's got to be less than 20.
How many oversights are happening? And how many things that they're not seeing?
Though Dugard was not sold into a trafficking ring, her case illustrates how missing children are vulnerable to exploitation for long periods without being detected by authorities. It wasn't until 2009 that Dugard was discovered, living in a makeshift compound in Garrido's backyard. Another notable case is that of Shania Davis, a 5-year-old girl from Fayetteville, North Carolina, who was sold by her mother to a man for sexual exploitation in 2009. Shania was reported missing, and within days her body was found in a wooded area. The investigation revealed that her mother had trafficked her to pay off a drug debt.
What was your emergency? Yes, ma'am. My name is Antoinette Davis, 1116 A, Sleepy Hollow.
Ma'am?
My name is Antoinette Davis, 1116 A, Sleepy Hollow.
Okay, I'm not getting your address clearly. Can you slow down a little bit and tell me again?
1116 A, Sleepy Hollow.
1116A?
16.
16?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. How can I help you?
I woke up this morning and my daughter was not in the house. I don't know if she walked out or I don't know what's going on, but she's not here.
How old is your daughter?
She's 5.
5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What time did you wake up? When did you last see her?
I saw her at 5:30 last night.
Will the foreperson please stand?
Madam Clerk, please take the verdict.
Madam Foreperson, the jury has returned as its verdict as to the issues and recommendation as to punishment as to the defendant, Mario McNeil, and file number 09-CRS-66040. As to issue number 1, yes. As to issue number 2, yes. As to issue number 3, yes. As to issue number 4, yes. The jury has returned as its recommendation as to the defendant, Mario McNeil, that he be sentenced to death. Is this unanimous recommendation of the jury? So say you all by raising your hand.
The court sees 12 hands. Thank you. You can have a seat. Defense may have a seat.
This horrifying case showed just how easily a vulnerable child can be sold into trafficking, even by their own family members. In 2016, the FBI launched Operation Cross Country, a nationwide initiative aimed at rescuing children from sex trafficking rings. During the operation, more than 82 minors were recovered, many of whom had been reported missing for months or even years. This initiative brought to light the alarming number of missing children who had been swept into the trafficking system without the knowledge of their families or law enforcement. Child trafficking rings in the U.S. are highly organized, operating with frightening efficiency. Traffickers often work in groups with individuals assigned specific roles such as recruiting, transporting, or controlling the children. Many traffickers pose as pimps or caretakers, while others create fake online profiles to lure children through social media platforms and gaming networks. Once the children are in their grasp, traffickers often move them across multiple locations to avoid detection by law enforcement. One of the most insidious elements of child trafficking is the use of online platforms to facilitate the sale of children. In 2017, the website Backpage.com, a classified ad website, was shut down by federal authorities after it was revealed that the platform was being used to traffic children. Investigations showed that traffickers were using the site to advertise minors for sex, with thousands of children being exploited through these ads. This case brought to light the dark side of the internet and how it plays a critical role in the trafficking of children. Moreover, traffickers often collaborate with local gangs and criminal organizations to traffic children. In 2013, a major trafficking ring in New York City was dismantled after it was discovered that the Bloods gang was involved in the trafficking of underage girls. The girls, many of whom were runaways, were lured into the ring under false promises of safety and protection, but were later forced into prostitution. The trafficking ring operated for years before law enforcement was able to crack down on it, by which time dozens of minors had been victimized. One of the most tragic aspects of child trafficking in the U.S. is the connection between missing children and the foster care system. Many children who are trafficked come from foster care, where they are already vulnerable due to instability, neglect, or abuse in their previous home environments. According to a 2019 report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, approximately 60% of child trafficking victims had been involved in the foster care system. Children who run away from foster care are at an especially high risk of being trafficked. A 2020 report from the National Foster Youth Institute revealed that 1 in 5 foster children who run away end up being trafficked, many within the first 48 hours of leaving their foster home. These children are particularly vulnerable because they lack the support networks that other children might have, making them easy prey for traffickers. Rescuing children from trafficking rings is a monumental challenge. Traffickers often keep their victims under tight control, using violence, threats, and manipulation to prevent them from escaping or reaching out for help. Many trafficked children suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological phenomenon where victims develop an emotional bond with their captors, making it difficult for them to seek freedom even when opportunities arise. Furthermore, law enforcement agencies face significant challenges in identifying and rescuing trafficked children. The underground nature of the trafficking industry, combined with the fact that many victims are moved across state lines or even internationally, makes it difficult for authorities to locate them. In many cases, trafficked children are given false identities or documents, further complicating efforts to track them down. Despite the harrowing statistics, efforts to combat child trafficking have intensified in recent years. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act (TVPA), passed in 2000, marked a significant step forward in addressing human trafficking, including child trafficking, by increasing penalties for traffickers and providing resources for victim support. Non-governmental organizations like Polaris, which operates the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and Thorn, co-founded by actor Ashton Kutcher, have played crucial roles in raising awareness and developing technological tools to identify and rescue trafficked children. In 2020, Thorn's partnership with law enforcement led to the identification of over 2,000 children involved in online sexual exploitation, many of whom had been trafficked. The role of the FBI's Innocence Lost National Initiative has also been critical. Since its inception in 2003, the initiative has rescued over 6,000 children from trafficking rings, focusing on dismantling organized networks and providing victims with the care and resources they need to rebuild their lives. The mechanics of child trafficking are complex, deeply entrenched, and terrifyingly effective. Each year, thousands of children vanish without a trace in the United States, many of whom are swept into trafficking rings that exploit them for profit. The connection between missing children and trafficking is undeniable, with runaways and children from foster care being the most at-risk groups. While efforts to combat trafficking have gained momentum, the fight is far from over. Trafficking rings continue to evolve, and until greater systemic changes are made, countless children will remain vulnerable to this horrific industry.
We're back with your 17 Court Watch. A shocking investigation by the Kern County Sheriff's Department reveals 16 people being held captive in an East Bakersfield home. 17's Karen Marroquin has video of the man who escaped in a desperate attempt to free his family and others.
This never-before-seen footage shows a man run up to a home and bang on the garage door. He then proceeds to scream, "Help us."
Se oían unos gritos de niños.
Isabel Ceja is a neighbor who says kids were also heard pleading for help. This happened last Friday shortly after midnight on the 8300 block of Cha-Cha Court in East Bakersfield.
In that a subject is in our backyard, stating that he had been kidnapped and was held hostage.
When sheriff's deputies arrived, they contacted the man in the video, who then told police officials he was held captive in a home after being smuggled into the United States from Mexico. He also said approximately 15 other victims, including the man's wife and a minor child, were being held in the same residence. According to a statement from CSO, deputies identified a residence in the 700 block of Salsa Street as the residence the victim fled from.
Siempre salgo a caminar mi perro y
Ceja, along with other neighbors, say the home the victim was held in was always surrounded by cars. They also said the people living in the property had only been there for 1 to 2 months, and that they had always kept to themselves. KCSO has not confirmed this information. Deputies executed a search warrant at the residence, according to KCSO, but didn't find anyone inside. Further investigation revealed the additional victims had been taken to 2 locations, one in the 600 block of South Haley Street and the other in the 500 block of Sloan Lane near Foothill High School. A total of 16 victims, 7 female and 9 male, were rescued. They range from ages 8 to 66. According to a source, the victims had been transported by boat from Ensenada to the San Diego area. They were then transported by vehicle to Bakersfield. However, the Kern County Sheriff's Department has not confirmed this information. 9 suspects ages 16 to 27 were identified and arrested for various charges, such as kidnapping, false imprisonment, human trafficking for labor purposes, and criminal conspiracy.
Ahora sí da miedo a mí.
As for neighboring homes, Isabela Ceja says this situation left her frightened and that she's now afraid of even going outside.
In recent years, the concept of adrenochrome has emerged as a disturbing focal point in discussions surrounding child trafficking, elite circles, and the entertainment industry. Originating from a fictional narrative, the idea of adrenochrome derived from the oxidation of adrenaline has taken on a life of its own, fueling conspiracy theories that suggest a dark and sinister underbelly in Hollywood. This chapter will examine the controversial claims surrounding adrenochrome, explore its alleged ties to elite circles, and break down the evidence that connects trafficking to these chilling practices. The origins of adrenochrome as a substance are rooted in literature. It was first introduced in the 1954 book The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley, where it was described as a psychedelic compound. Later in 1960, the novel Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson further popularized the idea, suggesting that adrenochrome was harvested from the adrenal glands of living subjects, producing intense euphoria and hallucinations. Although Huxley and Thompson's works were purely fictional, the notion of adrenochrome has since evolved into a symbol of alleged elite exploitation, particularly in the context of child trafficking. The modern conspiracy theories surrounding adrenochrome gained traction in the early 2010s, particularly within certain online communities. These theories often assert that a network of powerful individuals in Hollywood and other elite circles engage in the harvesting of adrenochrome from children to achieve prolonged youth and heightened experiences. Opponents of these theories allege that children are subjected to trauma and abuse, which they claim increases the potency of adrenochrome. While these claims are often dismissed as mere conspiracy theories, the underlying issues of child trafficking and exploitation in Hollywood are alarmingly real. According to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children in MEC, approximately 800,000 children go missing in the U.S. each year, with a significant percentage of these cases linked to trafficking. The connection between Hollywood and child trafficking has been substantiated by numerous incidents and testimonies over the years. One of the most notable cases is that of Corey Feldman, a former child star who has spoken openly about the rampant abuse and exploitation of children in the entertainment industry. In 2016, Feldman appeared on The Today Show and detailed his own experiences of abuse, stating that he and his fellow child actors were often preyed upon by powerful figures in Hollywood.
I literally was famous before I knew my own name. I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
He asserted that the problem is systemic and has persisted for decades. Feldman's allegations echo the tragic story of Michael Jackson, who was accused of abusing children during his rise to fame. While Jackson was acquitted of criminal charges in 2005, the public scrutiny surrounding his relationships with young boys raised serious questions about the safety of child actors in the entertainment industry. The case served as a reminder of the vulnerabilities that children face in Hollywood, making them easy targets for exploitation. Several high-profile cases have underscored the systemic failures within the entertainment industry to protect children. In 2018, actress Mara Wilson, known for her role in Matilda, shared her experiences as a child actor and highlighted the lack of protections in place for young performers. She noted that children often face pressures to conform to adult expectations, making them susceptible to abuse.
Sometimes I have anxiety about being out there again, being on stuff. And he goes, well, it was kind of a monoculture when you were a kid. I think probably when you were doing work, it was starting to fracture, but...
They were trying. I think that they were trying to find a market for the differences because much of the same thing was out.
But like now, I always joke that I have an audience of bisexual librarians. And you know, and like elementary school teachers love me, you know, and
Same.
and yeah, and that's like that's who my people are. That's who my fans are. The people who are like the most real. They're you know, they're those kinds of people and well read, yeah, and they're pretty well read. Maybe they're in like, you know, maybe they're aspiring writers themselves. Maybe they're, you know, actual writers themselves. That kind.
Moreover, the Me Too movement, which gained momentum in 2017, revealed a pervasive culture of abuse in Hollywood. While the movement primarily focused on sexual harassment and assault, it also shone a light on the broader issues of exploitation and abuse within the industry. Prominent figures like Harvey Weinstein were exposed for their predatory behavior, prompting discussions about the power dynamics that allow such abuse to flourish. While direct evidence linking adrenochrome harvesting to trafficking remains scarce, the larger issue of child exploitation in Hollywood cannot be ignored. Numerous survivors have come forward, detailing the psychological and physical trauma they endured as children in the entertainment industry. In 2020, actress Eliza Dushku revealed that she was sexually molested at the age of 12 by a co-star while filming True Lies. Dushku's story reflects the troubling reality faced by many child actors who are vulnerable to predatory behavior from those in power. In addition, the Child Victims Act, passed in 2019 in New York, aimed to extend the statute of limitations for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. This landmark legislation has led to a wave of lawsuits against powerful figures in the entertainment industry, signaling a reckoning for those who have exploited vulnerable children. The media plays a significant role in shaping public perception of these issues. While sensationalist narratives surrounding adrenochrome often dominate discussions, reputable news outlets have begun to explore the deeper issues of child exploitation in Hollywood. Investigative journalism has uncovered a multitude of cases where children have been placed in dangerous situations, and the industry's culture of silence has allowed such abuses to persist. A notable investigation by Variety in 2018 examined the issue of child abuse in Hollywood, shedding light on the systemic failures of child protection services and the entertainment industry. The report highlighted the need for stricter regulations and oversight to protect child actors from abuse, emphasizing that the industry must take responsibility for the safety and well-being of its young performers. The urgent need to address the issues of child trafficking and exploitation in Hollywood cannot be overstated. Reform must begin with comprehensive policies aimed at protecting child actors. This includes establishing mandatory training for producers and directors on recognizing and preventing abuse, as well as implementing strict regulations on the hiring and treatment of child performers. In addition, industry-wide initiatives to support survivors of abuse are essential. Organizations like the Actors Fund provide resources for performers facing mental health challenges due to their experiences in the industry. Expanding support services for survivors is crucial in helping them heal and reclaim their lives. Public awareness is a vital component of combating child trafficking and exploitation. Grassroots movements and advocacy organizations can mobilize communities to demand accountability from the entertainment industry. The rise of social media has empowered individuals to share their stories, fostering a sense of solidarity among survivors and advocates. Furthermore, educating the public about the realities of child trafficking and exploitation is essential. Awareness campaigns can help dispel the myths surrounding adrenochrome while focusing on the tangible issues that affect children today. By shining a light on these dark realities, society can work together to create a safer environment for children in all sectors, including entertainment. The allegations surrounding adrenochrome and its supposed ties to elite circles in Hollywood may often be steeped in conspiracy theories. However, the broader issue of child trafficking and exploitation is a chilling reality that demands urgent attention. As society grapples with the troubling narratives surrounding these topics, it is crucial to remain focused on the concrete issues facing children in the entertainment industry. Comprehensive reform, public awareness, and advocacy are essential in combating these pervasive issues. Together, we must work to ensure that children are protected, valued, and given the opportunity to thrive free from the shadows of exploitation and abuse. The fight against child trafficking is not just a battle for justice, it is a moral imperative that requires our collective commitment to creating a safer world for future generations.
Up to 8,000 children are victims every single year of human trafficking in San Diego County. For 3.5 years, Keelan Washington was one of them. Her perpetrator, her 19-year-old boyfriend.
He came up with a conversation with me talking about how he wasn't able to pay his bills. He was behind on car notes and he knew a way for me to make some money. And so he introduced this idea of selling myself for sex.
Then he kidnapped her, sold her in over 12 states and online, and began torturing her.
Where now I'm sitting in ice baths and being hung from the shower with the belt. Like, it just continued to get worse. I think a lot of times we think that it's this, you're thrown into the van or it's taken. Or we tell our kids stranger danger, right? And that's where we go wrong. Traffickers are looking for that. They're looking for broken homes. They're looking for kids who are seeking validation. My mom knew how to have the conversation with me about trafficking. I may have not been trafficked.
The entertainment industry, often perceived as a glamorous world filled with glitz and fame, harbors dark secrets, including connections to child trafficking and exploitation. While Hollywood has long been celebrated for its ability to captivate audiences and create cultural icons, it also has a troubling history of abuse, with numerous testimonies and incidents that point to a disturbing intersection between the entertainment world and child trafficking networks. This exploration delves into these connections, highlighting real-life cases and the systemic issues that allow exploitation to thrive within the industry. Children in the entertainment industry are particularly vulnerable to exploitation. The pressure to perform, coupled with the allure of fame, often leads young actors and actresses into precarious situations. The bright lights and promises of success can easily obscure the lurking dangers of manipulation and abuse. Many children in Hollywood come from difficult backgrounds, making them even more susceptible to predatory behavior. Here are some human trafficking attempts.
Watch again. You see the attacker casually walk away after letting go of the woman.
It's a good thing she fought.
The brazen ambush also happened while people are seen walking on the sidewalk across the street. After the woman's freed, she quickly walks over to them. Listen closely. You can hear her shaken voice.
You see in this door camera video first obtained by ABC affiliate WFAA, the moment apparent kidnappers tried to take a group of 9-year-old boys.
Watch this surveillance video. You can see a man pushing a pink stroller with a 3-year-old boy in it down 86th Street near Bay Parkway. But police say it's not his. Look closer as the boy's grandma comes running after him after he tries to take off with the toddler. But the woman quickly catches up to him and he walks off as she grabs the stroller.
After an attempted kidnapping in Queens, you can see one person pick up a 5-year-old boy and put him in the back of a car on Hillside Avenue in Richmond Hill. The boy's mother was able to pull him out through the front passenger window. The suspect and another person in the maroon car drove away. Luckily, the little boy was not hurt.
Another infamous case is that of Gary Glitter, a former pop star who was convicted of child sexual abuse. Glitter, who gained fame in the 1970s, was arrested in 2012 and later sentenced to 16 years in prison for sexually abusing 3 young girls. His downfall serves as a cautionary tale of how the industry has historically protected its stars, often at the expense of young victims. Glitter's exploitation of minors exemplifies how fame can create a facade that hides egregious behaviors, allowing abusers to operate unchecked. The power dynamics in Hollywood contribute significantly to the prevalence of exploitation. The industry is rife with hierarchical structures that create environments where powerful individuals can manipulate and exploit vulnerable talent. Young performers often depend on directors, producers, and agents for career advancement, which can lead to situations where they feel obligated to comply with inappropriate requests. In 2018, actress Rose McGowan, known for her role in Charmed, accused Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein of rape, igniting the Me Too movement that exposed the rampant sexual harassment and abuse in the entertainment industry. While Weinstein's case primarily focused on adult actresses, the broader implications raised concerns about the safety of all performers, especially children. McGowan's revelations highlighted how systemic failures within Hollywood allow abusers to thrive, often turning a blind eye to the victims in favor of maintaining the status quo.
Back every time, even right now.
What do you mean by a body flashback?
I can feel him there.
The him she's speaking.
International rapist, okay? This is the truth of what it is. This is an international rape factory. Every single place he ever stayed, there are people there set up to help him rape. This is how it went. This is what it was. People, women, girls would be said, oh, you have a meeting or come to a party. They would show up and that party is just him. Who got them there? Who are the assistants?
You're saying there was a machinery.
So I'm saying there's a man down in the chair. I was pretty mortified.
And why did you slide down in your seat?
Because I felt the man watching me.
The studio head.
It felt really exposed. It was like an appetizer, I suppose, right?
McGowan refuses to call Weinstein by name.
Numerous testimonies from former child actors shed light on the exploitation prevalent in Hollywood. Drew Barrymore, who gained fame at a young age with her role in E.T., the extraterrestrial, has openly discussed her struggles with addiction and the pressures of fame. Barrymore's experiences in the industry, including partying at a young age and facing intense scrutiny, reflect the often harrowing realities faced by child stars.
The winner is...
Tatum O'Neal. My director, Peter Bogdanovich, and my father. Thank you.
In 2019, actress Tatum O'Neal, who became the youngest person to win an Academy Award for her role in Paper Moon, spoke out about the dangers that young actors face in Hollywood. O'Neill revealed that she had been manipulated and abused by powerful men in the industry. Her testimony underscores the urgent need for reform in how child actors are protected and supported throughout their careers. In the digital age, social media has transformed how young actors and performers interact with the industry and the public. While platforms like Instagram and TikTok can offer opportunities for visibility and career advancement, they also expose children to increased risks of exploitation. Predatory individuals can easily use these platforms to groom and exploit minors, further complicating the landscape of child safety in entertainment. In 2020, the case of Maddie Ziegler, a young dancer and actress who rose to fame through Sia's music videos, highlights the potential dangers of social media. Ziegler has faced intense scrutiny and criticism online, leading to concerns about her mental health and well-being. While she has not reported direct abuse, the pressure and exploitation young stars face online cannot be understated. The case emphasizes the need for parental oversight and protective measures for children in the public eye. While Hollywood has historically faced criticism for its treatment of child actors, the intersection of the entertainment industry and child trafficking remains a pervasive issue. Reports have indicated that child trafficking networks often exploit children through the guise of casting calls or modeling opportunities, drawing them into a cycle of abuse and exploitation. In 2017, the FBI conducted Operation Cross Country, a nationwide initiative aimed at identifying and rescuing child victims of sex trafficking. During the operation, law enforcement rescued 84 children, many of whom were missing and believed to be victims of trafficking. In 2019, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported that 1 in 6 endangered runaways were likely sex trafficking victims. Many of these children come from unstable backgrounds or are runaways, making them easy targets for traffickers who can pose as legitimate agents or industry insiders. The statistics underscore a troubling trend, as Hollywood and the entertainment industry often inadvertently become breeding grounds for trafficking networks that exploit the dreams of vulnerable youth. In response to the alarming connections between Hollywood and child trafficking, various advocacy groups and law enforcement agencies have stepped up their efforts to combat these issues. Organizations like Polaris and Shared Hope International are dedicated to raising awareness about child trafficking and providing resources for victims. They work to educate parents, children, and industry professionals about the signs of trafficking and exploitation, empowering them to take action when they witness suspicious behavior. The FBI and other law enforcement agencies have increased their focus on child trafficking cases, launching initiatives aimed at dismantling trafficking rings and rescuing victims. Through collaborative efforts with organizations and community stakeholders, they aim to create a safer environment for children in entertainment and beyond. While significant strides have been made in addressing child trafficking and exploitation in Hollywood, much work remains to be done. Comprehensive reforms are necessary to ensure that young performers are protected from predatory behavior and that their voices are heard. This includes implementing stricter regulations regarding child actors, ensuring that all working environments are safe and supportive, and holding accountable those who engage in abusive behavior. Parents of young performers must also remain vigilant, advocating for their children's well-being and seeking out environments that prioritize safety over fame. Education and awareness are crucial in combating the exploitation of children in the entertainment industry. By providing parents, children, and industry professionals with the knowledge they need to recognize and address abuse, we can create a safer environment for all young performers. The disturbing realities surrounding child trafficking and systemic failures within child protection services in the United States have reached a crisis point. Despite the alarming statistics, public awareness remains insufficient, and the systems designed to protect the most vulnerable often fail them spectacularly. This chapter delves into the urgent need for systemic change, examining governmental failures, the shortcomings of child protection services, and the steps that can be taken to reform these institutions. Moreover, it discusses how the public can actively engage in the fight against child trafficking and corruption. Child Protective Services (CPS) was established to safeguard children from abuse and neglect, yet numerous reports highlight its failures. A 2019 report by the U.S. Government Accountability Office (GAO) revealed that nearly 50% of the children who die from abuse or neglect had prior contact with child welfare agencies. In 2017, the case of Jordan Beliveau, a 2-year-old boy from Florida, exemplified the catastrophic shortcomings of CPS. Despite being flagged for abuse, Jordan was placed back in his mother's care, where he ultimately lost his life.
According to the detectives, during her interview, She would constantly change what she was saying based on the line of questioning. There was no feeling with them that there was any remorse, only her attempting to escape the reality of the story by making things up as she went.
I originally said in many pressers that our goal was to find Jordan. Although that has happened, our goal now is a successful prosecution.
His mother was charged with murder, yet the systemic failures that allowed this tragedy to occur went largely unaddressed. Statistics regarding missing children are equally disconcerting. According to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children in MAKE, over 424,000 children were reported missing in the U.S. In 2020, with many of these cases linked to human trafficking, the lack of efficient tracking and recovery systems compounds the issue, as many children vanish into the shadows, their cases becoming cold. Moreover, a 2021 report indicated that Black and Indigenous children are disproportionately affected by these systems, facing systemic biases that often leave them more vulnerable to trafficking and exploitation. Governmental response to these alarming issues has often been inadequate. For instance, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act (TVPA), enacted in 2000, aimed to combat human trafficking but has been criticized for insufficient funding and resources for effective implementation. In 2019, the U.S. State Department reported that only a fraction of human trafficking victims are identified and assisted, reflecting a systematic failure to address the root causes of trafficking and the inadequacy of current laws and protections. The Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) has made efforts to combat trafficking through initiatives like Operation Cross Country, which in 2019 rescued 100 minors. However, the systemic issues remain, as these operations are reactive rather than preventative. The lack of comprehensive federal legislation addressing child welfare and trafficking means that states often operate in silos, leading to inconsistent protections across the country. The urgent need for systemic reform cannot be overstated. Policymakers must prioritize the establishment of clear guidelines and standards for child protective services, ensuring that all states are held accountable for their treatment of vulnerable children. A comprehensive national database should be created to track missing children and provide real-time updates on their cases. This would enhance collaboration among state agencies and law enforcement, enabling a more coordinated response to recover missing children effectively. Moreover, implementing mandatory training for social workers and law enforcement personnel on recognizing the signs of trafficking and abuse can significantly impact the efficacy of child protection services. Many professionals in these fields often lack adequate training in identifying and responding to trafficking situations, leading to missed opportunities for intervention. Community involvement is crucial in addressing the issues of child trafficking and systemic failures within child protection services. Grassroots organizations and community advocacy groups can serve as vital resources for education and awareness. For instance, organizations like Polaris and Shared Hope International work tirelessly to combat trafficking and support victims. By providing educational resources, they empower communities to recognize and report suspicious activities related to trafficking. Public awareness campaigns can also play a significant role in highlighting the realities of child trafficking. In 2020, the Save Our Children movement gained traction on social media, bringing attention to the issue and sparking discussions about the need for systemic reform. By engaging the public in these conversations, communities can work together to demand accountability from their local and state governments. To effect change at the legislative level, advocacy groups must lobby for stronger protections for children. Proposed bills such as the Child Welfare Oversight and Accountability Act aim to ensure transparency and accountability within child welfare agencies. However, these proposals often stall in legislative processes. It is crucial for the public to engage in advocacy efforts, urging their representatives to prioritize child welfare and support initiatives aimed at combating trafficking. Additionally, the government should allocate more funding to organizations that provide support and rehabilitation services for victims of trafficking. A comprehensive approach to recovery, including mental health services, legal support, and job training, can help survivors reintegrate into society and reduce the risk of re-victimization. Education is a powerful tool in preventing child trafficking. Schools can serve as safe spaces for children, providing them with the knowledge and resources to recognize and report suspicious behavior. Incorporating lessons on personal safety, healthy relationships, and the dangers of trafficking into school curriculums can empower children to speak up and seek help. Parents must also be educated about the risks their children face. Workshops and seminars led by local organizations can provide parents with valuable information on how to protect their children and recognize signs of potential exploitation. The U.S. must also collaborate with international organizations and governments to combat child trafficking on a global scale. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, emphasizes the importance of international cooperation in addressing human trafficking, as it often transcends borders. By sharing resources, intelligence, and best practices, nations can work together to dismantle trafficking networks and protect children worldwide. The systemic failures of child protection services and the ongoing issue of child trafficking represent a national crisis that demands immediate attention. It is essential for all sectors of society, government, law enforcement, communities, and individuals to come together and advocate for change. By prioritizing the protection of vulnerable children, implementing comprehensive reforms, and raising awareness, we can create a safer environment for future generations. As citizens, we must take an active role in advocating for systemic reform. This includes holding our elected officials accountable, supporting organizations that work to combat trafficking, and educating ourselves and our communities about the signs of exploitation. The fight against child trafficking and the failures of child protection services is a collective responsibility that requires urgent action. Together, we can ensure that every child is protected, valued, and given the opportunity to thrive free from the shadows of exploitation and abuse.